This is Rosen Institute's Your Law Firm, where Lee Rosen and Ned Days cover management, marketing, finance, and new technologies for building the practice you deserve. Here's Lee Rosen.
It's good to be with you today from Shanghai, China. This is a city that just constantly surprises you with its blend of the modern and the traditional. It's really an unusual place in that regard. One thing that jumps out is the quiet. That is such a striking contrast with the constant hum and buzz that I'm used to in other big cities. This city, with a population of tens of millions, is one where you would just expect a certain level of chaos, of noise, but it's just shockingly quiet. Why is that? Well, I think it's the electric cars and buses that are filling the streets. Thanks to them, the road noise, it's just nearly absent. It's just so incredibly quiet. Normally, I walk down streets in cities and I have to rely on my AirPods to mute the city sounds. But here in Shanghai, it's just not necessary. You can sit in a park, even right next to a 6 or 8 lane road, and you can hear the birds singing. Everything about this city is so quiet. The cars, they can't be heard even a short distance from the roadway. And even if you're standing next to the road, all you get is this whoosh sound of the air and a little bit of tire friction as the cars breeze by. It actually forces you to pay a lot of attention because the motorbikes especially, they can just sneak up on you and fly right by. They say that living in China is like living in the future. And so far, well, I have to say, I like the way the future sounds. Get ready. The world, it's going to get very, very quiet.
It's time for your tech tip. I gave up drinking at the tender age of 18. It was a night spent at Disney's ill-fated Pleasure Island, where, fueled by booze purchased by a friend with a fake ID, I awkwardly attempted to dance with, or grind on, as we called it at the time, women at least twice my age who were clearly not interested in said grinding. I realized the next morning this was not how I needed to be spending my time and called it quits. Now, I'm not an absolute teetotaler. I will toast to a special occasion every year or two, but I bring this up to reinforce that I am a lightweight when it comes to alcohol, and a single drink just about does me in. Several years ago, when I was living in Sofia, Bulgaria, I took advantage of the exchange rate and the fact that things were quite inexpensive relative to American prices to work most of my day from cafes around downtown. I settled on one cafe in particular for a couple of weeks where I would buy a few black coffees and then be in an awkward position. I had been sitting in the cafe for several hours and racked up a total bill of something like $1.50 in American money, so I felt like I should leave a reasonable gratuity, but regularly leaving a 300% tip is kind of awkward in its own right, much like grinding on the attendees of Barbara's 50th at Pleasure Island. One day I decided to change it up and order something exotic to pad my bill. I looked at the menu and they had something called an espresso mojito, some combination of coffee, mint, and sugar. I ordered one and it was delicious. The next day I went back and as I was working I decided to order another one. But when it came out it looked alarmingly clear and devoid of coffee. I took a sip and I could tell right away this was a regular mojito. I have to commend them on their service and adherence to the motto the customer is always right. If the smelly foreigner wants a mixed drink at 9:30 in the morning, the smelly foreigner gets a mixed drink at 9:30 in the morning. No questions asked. Not wanting to be rude, I drank it and had what I'm sure were some interesting exchanges over Slack with my coworkers for the next hour or so. On my next visit to the cafe, I didn't want to make the same mistake, but I did want another 700-calorie hipster coffee. So I pointed to the item I wanted on the menu, espresso mojito, I said, coffee, tapping at the laminated sheet with my finger. Da, said the waitress as she took my order, but once again she came out with a real mojito, and once again I drank it before stumbling home at 9:30 in the morning. Maybe she thought she was repaying me for the excessive tipping in the weeks prior, maybe something was lost in translation, maybe Barbara really is picking up what I'm putting down when I gyrate to Cruel Summer. Whatever it was, what I thought I was getting and what I got were miles apart. And this same kind of thing happens all too frequently when we embark on marketing, technology, or really just about any kind of project where we are relying on outside help and engaging in arenas where there's a lot of specialized knowledge and terminology with which we aren't familiar. We're reliant on other people understanding what it is we want and what we are asking for. Now, sometimes things genuinely do get lost in translation. Language issues come up with contractors from time to time, but they are usually pretty minor and easy to address. What are often trickier and more frustrating are definitions of terms and what they mean in context to us versus what they mean in the parlance of sales reps or developers. What constitutes a user in a piece of software? An employee at your firm, a client, a person with admin privileges? These things make a big difference when it comes to how many licenses you need or what kind of functionality you need developed. What about a user versus a session or a page view when it comes to measuring website traffic? Those are very different measurements, and if you are paying for one while expecting the other because you aren't familiar with the definitions, you are probably going to be disappointed. I once had an issue where a file storage system we were using supported 256 character file names. No big deal, I thought. Our file names aren't that long. Oh, but actually the entire path of the file counts toward those 256 characters. So all of the folder names for a file that was 5 or 6 folders deep needed to be included as well. That starts to present a problem. Be clear about what exactly you're expecting even when you are using basic terms and metrics. Go into painfully obvious detail so that there is no ambiguity. Something might seem obvious to both parties, but mean wildly different things due to different contexts. Something else that can happen is ending up in a position where regardless of what it is you want to buy or have built, you are going to get exactly what the vendor or contractor is selling. Sometimes this is the best solution. Sometimes the specific approach isn't terribly important as long as it's executed by someone skilled in that approach. But there are lots of developers and marketers out there who do exactly one thing and are happy to get paid to do it for you, even if it's not the best solution to your problem. You want a coffee, and they sell mixed drinks. I sometimes think I see attorneys making mistakes in this regard because it's something that, by and large, lawyers don't tend to do. Sure, there are some practice areas where it makes sense to cross-sell certain services, but you generally don't see attorneys trying to convince a potential client seeking a divorce that what they really need is to file a few patents and trademarks. Attorneys are pretty good at either delivering the service the client wants or referring them to someone who can. You don't usually need or even want somebody who claims to be an expert in every platform or software or protocol, but you do want someone who is willing to tell you that what they deliver and what you are asking for aren't a great fit if that happens to be the case, and at the very least offer you a reasonable explanation of why the service they are offering makes sense for your use case compared to the buffet of other options available. And lastly, the opposite can also be a big problem. Sometimes getting exactly what you asked for is the worst possible outcome. When it comes to marketing and tech, especially if you have been handling things yourself and are growing to the point of having to pass these projects off, it's all too easy to know just enough to get yourself into trouble. Of course I want the mojito. That's exactly what I had yesterday. In fact, bring me 4 of them so I don't get thirsty. Obviously, Barbara and her friends appreciate my dance moves. Why do you think they are playing coy by running for the exit? Especially as we grow and need help from specialists for projects where we have some experience, there's often a temptation to put limitations and guardrails in place because it confines things to what we understand rather than taking full advantage of outside expertise. I'm sure you've had a client come to you who thinks he knows more than you do about your practice area and is downright belligerent when it comes to taking the advice for which he has paid you. And then we mutter to ourselves, this guy is such an idiot. This would be so much easier and the outcome would be so much better if he would just do what I tell him. But we do the same thing. We put strictures in place because of the way we've done things in the past, or because we read some article 3 months ago, or because our buddy who is also clueless but gets an affiliate commission for signing us up to a service said it's the only way to go. Don't let the guy with the hammer tell you your problem is absolutely without a doubt a nail, but also don't disregard the insight and expertise of professionals who can help you level up well beyond what's within your capacity. And don't tell Barbara, but I may have thrown up in her friend's handbag. I'm Ned Days, and that's your tech tip.
And now for your moment of concise advice. If you are one of the many, many lawyers that are doing their marketing online, relying on Google Ads or other online places in order to keep your client pipeline full, well, you're in crowded company. There are lots of lawyers doing what you're doing, and too many of us rely on those same digital spaces. We're all fishing in the same digital ponds, and that competition, it drives up costs and it reduces our returns. Believe me, I get the draw of marketing online. As a tech enthusiast, I was among the first to build a website and to run online ads and to do the digital marketing dance from the comfort of my own laptop. I love online marketing. It's so convenient, it's private, it's easy to control, and it doesn't involve a lot of exposing yourself to new people in networking settings and other places where building relationships sometimes can just feel a little bit painful. But here's the truth that I have learned the hard way. When you get out there in the real world, when you meet people, when you build connections, well, that works better. It works faster. And believe it or not, it's ultimately cheaper. Today, I'm encouraging you to go retro, to step back in time, to go out into the world and talk to people. Getting out, it's a great way to build a sustainable business. What you do is this: you show up and you speak up. And when you do that, well, you're not just another anonymous face online. You're that person that the people you've met, they remember you. You're the one who was willing to put in the time to make the connection, to build the relationship. That has a powerful impact on your connection to other human beings. Show up at professional meetings. Show up at lunches with prospective clients and with referral sources. Show up by giving speeches, or by joining a club, or by sponsoring an event, or by being out at lunch at crowded restaurants, or at the theater as part of the audience, or at your kids' sporting events. Get out more, be out more, get among the people. With showing up, what happens is you get remembered, and that means you get referrals, and that means you get clients. With showing up, you get remembered into infinity. People remember you forever, and that means you get referrals and you get clients. With online marketing, with digital ads, well, when you turn them off, it's like flipping a light switch. The impact of those ads, it goes dark. It fades quickly. Meeting people, connecting, building relationships, it has a long-term impact. And I'll tell you, showing up is fun. It's interesting. There are always stories that come from being out and about. Interesting things happen all the time. I'll never forget giving a family law talk at a women's center. I'm sitting there at the head of the crowd in my full lawyer mode and my suit. I'm giving it my all. I've got a room full of people hanging on every word, and suddenly I feel this little tug under my chair. And I look down, and there is this kid who has crawled up under my seat, and he is playing with the doorstop spring. It's one of those little spring doorstops, and for him, it's the most captivating thing in the world. And he keeps flicking it, and that spring, it keeps going boing, boing, boing every few seconds, and it is driving me nuts. I'm trying to give my talk, and that boing, boing, boing is happening over and over again. He was a cute kid, but he was incredibly annoying, and he kept at it for the entire hour of my talk. I made it to the end of the talk, and I thought the speech went pretty well. I thought I had done a reasonably good job, and the audience members, they were grateful. They were thankful that I had come and spoken to them. Some of them approached me after the meeting, and they asked very tough questions. They were concerned about paying a lawyer. I had women breaking down in tears, just not sure how they could proceed, how they could afford to do what they needed to do. I did the best I could to give them the best advice that I had, but that's a tough situation. I had a couple of attendees hug me after the talk, and that was nice. And then I had one woman trap me in the parking lot to give me a piece of her mind about the system in North Carolina. But I got lots of stories. It was an experience showing up. I enjoyed it in retrospect, even with all the boing, boing, boinging from that kid. But here's the thing, the speech, it worked. Not the kid with the spring or the parking lot ambush, but being there, giving the talk, showing up in front of people. I got hired by clients. These memorable moments at events like the speech, they connected me with people in a way that no advertisement online ever could. And some of those relationships, they turned into clients, and others of those relationships turned into referrals. People remember you when you make an impression, and because there's a real connection, they're more loyal to you. They're more committed. They value what it is that you bring to the table. No Google algorithm can ever deliver like that. You deliver that by showing up. And you know from experience that the price of those online advertisements, it never goes down. It always goes up. Acquiring those clients gets more and more expensive. Those relationships, those connections, they don't get more expensive over time. You own that reputation in your community. So the point is this: if you want a consistently growing practice, then get out, show up, get comfortable with showing up and with making yourself known in your community. Stop waiting for the clicks to convert and start building the relationships. Those relationships, they matter and they'll convert forever. Today, I'm challenging you to take just one step outside of the digital this week. Just one, a small step, nothing major, nothing too hard. Do what feels comfortable to you. Invite someone to lunch or volunteer to give a talk or join a group in your community. Just take one action and watch what happens. That one action, it's worth a lot of online ads. You know, it's often the simplest things that build your reputation, that generate the referrals, that get you the clients. And often those simple things, they're a lot more effective than fighting for space in a digital crowd. That's your moment of concise advice. Wrapping up from Shanghai, thanks for spending a few minutes with me and Ned today. We hope you have a great weekend and an even better week next week. Keep plugging away, moving forward, and getting things done. You're on the right track. You'll get there, I promise. We're all in this together, and together we build better practices through better marketing, better management, and better technology. Until next time, I'm Lee Rosen.
Thanks for listening to Your Law Firm. Subscribe to the Friday File at roseninstitute.com and join thousands of lawyers focused on working on, instead of in their practices. You'll find safe, successful, actionable approaches for transforming your firm. Sign up for free at roseninstitute.com.